My name is Cameron, better known as Venus Theory. I'm a composer, sound designer, and content creator. These days, a lot of my work is composing for video games, which is basically the greatest job in the world because not only do I get paid to play video games, I also get to make the music for them, and that rules. In this video, I wanted to break down a session utilizing one of my favorite game composition techniques, which is additive composition. It's a really easy way to start writing music for video games if you've never done it before, and it's a whole lot of fun because you can write even a simple piece of music and turn it into something that can last for 20 or 30 minutes or more. And it all stacks together seamlessly thanks to a couple clever tricks on the arrangement end, making for not only a more cohesive experience for the player, but a more cohesive listening experience for the music. And even if making music for games isn't necessarily your goal, these same techniques can be applied to any genre of music to help make your arrangements more effective. It's a whole lot of fun. I'm excited to get into it, so let's hop into the session and break it down. Here we are in the session, and normally when I'm starting off, I like to just make a quick sketch with a piano or a guitar, or anything like that I have around just to make progress. I think that's the most important thing you can do in music, because as soon as you start thinking too much about what's happening, it's game over. So I came up with just a very simple piano sketch. Really simple stuff, just hanging out. Straight up E minor. If we wanted to, we could maybe expand on this idea by jumping into a parallel mode, maybe like a Dorian or something. To keep that minor feel, but just add a bit of twang, something like that. But again, really not a fan of thinking, more a fan of doing. So that was the core that everything starts with here. The biggest thing I think you can do when you're starting off in a game is just finding a couple sounds that sell a story and an idea. So I got Usynth STRANGER here with two different pads that I added a little bit of automation to just to set a mood. Nice simple stuff, more than enough to work with, and now we just need to kind of inflate that vibe a bit. This had a great feeling to it, so I wanted to bring in that melody, so I opened another instance of Stranger here and found this preset called My Analog Piano that just has a nice icy quality to it, maybe a little bit brittle even, but really sets the mood. And just like that, in 3 sounds, I think we've really set the scene here, and I just wanted a little pinch of something else on top. That's coming from this patch called Massacred Selena, and it just has this great kind of icy, almost foreboding quality to it. A very, very simple sound, but layered on top of everything else, now we're really starting to set the scene that everything else is going to sit on top of. And that's going to act as our bed for everything else. That will be kind of our exploration music, so now we need some tension music for when we get detected and some combat music layers. For the tension hold, I really just wanted percussion, so I opened a couple instances of Gloom here with different kits and effects on them, just to add a tension layer that can sit nicely on top of the ambient layer without really overtaking it and feeling like too much. So that gives us this. And this sort of lo-fi, really crunchy sound works so well with the kind of PlayStation 2 era vibe I was aiming for. Just nice, simple elements that add something. With these 2 layers, if I bring this fader down and we just bring it in over the top of our ambient bed, super simple, not a ton happening, but a really effective way of adding kind of a bit of tension, like we're sneaking around and now we might have to make a choice to enter the fight or do something. And we're adding this on top of an existing music bed, and that's the beauty of this additive composition approach. With that, it's time to make some combat layers. For the primary combat layers on the synth side, I've got 2 instances of Stranger and 1 of SUBCRAFT here just to fill out the synth end and add just a little bit of intensity, but not too much for this first kind of combat chunk. So I'm mostly just restating our melody in a different sound, adding some low end, and then just a nice crunchy ARP on top of that to add a sense of intensity and urgency, more so than just the stealth sneaking layer. For the drums, I brought in a couple more instances of Gloom. 1 for the kick, 1 for more of a crunchy ticking layer, and then another one just for some hi-hat work, and that sounds like this. So nothing too crazy, just something a little more driving and urgent. So with this additive process, now if we're in a tension state, we can start fading that level 1 in over this. So again, kind of subtle, but it's just adding another layer on top. But of course, with combat music, we need to get bigger and bolder and louder. So now we're going to work on level 2. The level 2 doesn't add too much other than another sequence and just kind of a more percussive line, again, really focusing on driving arpeggiated sounds since we've already got the melody pretty established. If we want to up the intensity, the easiest way to do that is with drums. So I've got an instance of Berserk, 2 instances of Gloom, just adding some snares and kind of a reverb affected snare hit, and then an instance of Perks with one of the really driving high, stick, choppy sort of things going on. In terms of the overall additive process, now we're working with this, which I think is pretty effective, but we can definitely stand to add a little bit more intensity, especially for something like a boss fight or a special encounter, and that's where level 3 of the combat music is going to come in. The percussion's pretty busy, so I just added an instance of Berserk here with a really hard-hitting kit just to really sell that groove and add some punch to it. Rounding things out in the music end, I added another instance of SUBCRAFT and 2 more instances of Stranger to bring back that melody with a new layer of intensity to it. So far in this 3rd level, everything feels pretty solid, but I felt like it just needed something a little bit more, and sometimes it's okay to just be a little overkill with things if it really serves the idea and especially the game. I brought in 2 instances of Carbon and panned them out to the left and right, just really nice, chunky, heavy guitars, which I thought would just sound awesome, so why not? And adding that on top, now we've got that final layer. As it stands right now, if we take a listen to everything, it feels pretty good, everything's reasonably balanced, but it would benefit from a bigger sense of space and kind of dimension, and luckily there's a couple things we can add to do that in like 4 seconds. In this session, I only really called up 4 different effects. I used the UFX delay just to add some groove to things and syncopation, the UFX reverb for a sense of space and dimension, a couple instances of UFX filter just to add some motion and automation and things like that, and also quite a few instances of the finisher micro, which is just quick, straightforward effects to polish things up. So if we bring that in, now we're actually really starting to get somewhere. So now it's just time to add some quick mixing stuff with EQ, panning, and things like that, throw everything through a quick master chain, and let's hear the final result. With everything mixed and all the automation and stuff out of the way, let's take a listen to our whole additive composition here. We start off with our exploration. Super spacey, tons of vibe. Let's bring in our detected stealth layer. Solid, let's bring in combat level 1. Cool, level 2. Bring it all home with level 3. Really good stuff, and in the game engine, we can start fading these out after combat. Maybe that detected loop fades out as well after a little bit. Now we're back into our chill state, and we can go between any of those states whenever we want, and now we've turned a pretty simple set of loops into something that could last for an entire gameplay session. And that's the beauty of this additive composition technique. We've created just a couple simple ideas that we could put together in checkerboard in different combinations and all sorts of fun stuff in game audio engines, or especially in middleware, to turn even just a couple simple ideas into tons and tons of different variations of music. And that's what makes game music so fun. It's just so interesting how many different ways you can approach things and how creative you can get with just a couple simple things. That's it for this video. Thank you for joining me. Thanks to UJAM for having me on the channel. I hope you enjoyed it, learned some techniques, and maybe some ideas you can try out in your next session. And of course, if you want to try anything that I used in this video, you can find it for yourself with the links down in the description below.